Hi guys, welcome back to another episode on Raincore Exotics. Today we're going to be having another Herp talk. If you like these talks, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below on maybe next week's theme. And today's theme we're going to be talking about one of the three major limitations that you have for keeping reptiles. So this limitation that I'm going to be talking about today is the environmental limitations on keeping reptiles. Of course, with enough money, a lot of these limitations become mute and you can really keep anything you'd like. However, for me, the modern Joe, I don't have X amount of dollars to throw at a species, right? So I want to get an animal that kind of fits into the area I live in, right? So let's say, for example, I live in Arizona, and Arizona, for those of you that don't know, is a very dry, very hot place to live. And let's say I wanted to get some dart frogs, the worst pairing, right? It is absolutely imperative that I know that dart frogs don't do well in Arizona climate, right? I cannot keep dart frogs in, mesh enclosures if I live in Arizona. Absolutely not, right? Dart frogs like a very cool and humid enclosure. Arizona, like I said, is very hot and dry, very hostile to dart frogs. So that means you, as a reptile keeper, need to provide that this environment that dart frogs prefer. So that means you're going to be investing money. This leads into the financial limitations, but that's for another video. You're gonna have to be able to provide air conditioning. If it gets to 100 degrees plus outside and you're trying to keep it in the 70s for your gecko, that means that air conditioning is going to be very expensive for you, and it's going to be an electric hog. So it's going to be, gotta keep that in mind if you want to get dart frogs. Maybe you can keep dart frogs in one part of your room and air condition that room, perhaps. That might cut costs a little bit, so you don't have to air condition your whole entire house or apartment. However, you need to be sure that you provide those temperatures. And like I said, Arizona is a very dry place as well. Dart frogs like their humidity to be in the 70s. Arizona does not agree with that. So you need to be able to mist or invest in money into getting a misting system. Misting systems automate automate that process, and it kind of takes the burden off of your shoulders. However, they can be pretty pricey and kind of difficult to set up and maintain. So that is another thing that pushes on your financial limitation. In my particular case, it gets pretty warm where I live, and it is not bone dry. The humidity is right around 40%. So that means that I cannot keep things like dart frogs and day geckos and things that like it a more mild temperature, low temperature. And I can keep things that like humidity fairly well because the air isn't trying to suck the humidity out of my enclosure, right? So I think that for me, the best type of species would be desert species like viper geckos or stropharis, Australian spiny-tailed geckos. I really like those. Things along those lines. Things that really don't need, things that can handle higher temperatures fairly well, that won't get too stressed out, and can handle a little higher humidity. Of course, this is one of the limitations that can be solved with your financials. If it's too humid, you can get dehumidifiers. If you need more humidity, you can get humidifiers. If it's too cold, you can heat the room. If it gets too hot, you can air condition, and that all takes money. So if you're like me, an average Joe that kind of lives on a budget, that is a burden that I really can't bear. So I have to keep in mind the animals I get for myself. If someone offers me an extremely cheap let's say a satanic leaf-tailed gecko, which is probably one of my most favorite geckos, I would have to turn them down simply because I do not have the environment for them. Leaf-tails like it cool, a little too cool for my room, unfortunately. If I were to get them, they'd be stressed out throughout the summer, and if worst comes to pass, I would have a dead leaf-tailed gecko on my hands, which is something I don't want. However, someone offers me, I don't know, a knob-tailed gecko, viper geckos, Stropherus, I would probably, if I have the space, I'd get them. However, if I don't, then I'm just there to walk. I'm just there to window shop. So you need to be sure that the animals you get vibe with your local environment, and if they don't, expect to have those costs passed down to you, right? Air conditioning is not cheap. Buying equipment like humidifiers, stuff like that. I walked into my local pet store and I saw this little girl with a baby veil chameleon, and the baby veil had its eyes closed. And right away I'm like, first of all, they're keeping that thing in a glass enclosure, and they're not giving it the proper humidity. And they gave exactly that advice because this girl was keeping her veil chameleon in a glass exoterra. On top of that, the area we lived in was fairly dry, so they needed a mist. So now they're in a situation where they need to have airflow with good humidity, right? And that's when misting systems come into place and fans, stuff like that. However, it's more money for equipment for a $60 animal. Those are the environmental factors that person didn't include in their budget when they got this cheap chameleon. So like, environmental factors are key are very key, and it kind of shows you how much you're gonna spend on maintenance on that animal, right? In my case, maintenance for my viper geckos is the heat bulb and the UV bulb. That's it, right? They need food, however, mealworms and crickets, that's just their feeders. However, if I lived in somewhere where it was dreadfully humid, I would have to invest money on a dehumidifier for the viper geckos. I would have to probably be the humidity that would cause them respiratory problems. So it's important to keep this in mind. Of course, if you're more experienced, you kind of get the gist of it. That animals have, their parameters they need to be in. However, people coming into the hobby that are fresh, they kind of need to know this. If you sell animals, please be sure to kind of vet whoever you're selling to. If you're selling dart frogs in Arizona to a little girl that's 10 years old, you want to be able to speak with her parents and let them know that the dart frogs like it nice and cool and nice and humid, and for them to plan on spending that money to getting those parameters right. Alright, so that has been the environmental limitations of what animals you can keep. Now, if you like these herp talks, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. It does help. It lets me know that there's someone listening out there in the big wide world. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks guys for coming and checking out my video.